Of course, they've started the Cold War up again as well. They're going to be building all of those long-range bombers and missiles again. That's what all this activity in the Ukraine is about, another profit center for that. But they do want that profit center of the war on terror. People who say that we're concerned, and we are concerned, that we're going to have a militarized police, you need to understand the police are already militarized. We've already got the federal government training our police. The question is it going to increase? We've had the federal government training the police in rules of engagement, training them to essentially be like Barney Fife, fearful of everything that they see, flaunting their authority, except instead of taking their bullets, they give them a magazine full of bullets and tell them to, once they start firing, to continue to fire until the magazine is empty. Those are the rules of engagement that are coming from the federal police. And they're giving militarized vehicles in the name of the war on drugs, okay? It truly is a war. They brought a war to our streets. The war of terror is from them. The war of drugs is from them. It's not going to solve anything. I mean, we even had the Dallas police chief come out and say, we've got to stop asking cops to do so much in this country. He says every societal failure, we put it on the cops to solve. He talked about drug addiction and all these other things. No, we put it on the government to solve. We think the government should solve everything. And we think the government should use force to solve everything, to make us safe. And so that's why we use the police to do it. He's exactly right about that. But then, of course, he goes on further and he says, you can become part of the solution. Join the police force. We'll solve all of your problems. No, I'm from the government. I'm here to help you. Is not true. We'll be right back.
We have seen attacks on free speech in the United States and Europe in the last few years that are unprecedented in modern history. Only dictators like Hitler tried to do the things we're now witnessing. If you criticize open borders and the Islamic invasion of Europe, they arrest you. Facebook bans you. And now those same activities are starting here. It's time to take the blinders off. We have seen men waving Mexican flags beat up women in California on television, and the mayor has come out in the town and said, hey, they deserved it. We have seen attacks on free speech that are truly unprecedented and that are racially motivated. I would be against a group of Caucasian men beating up a Hispanic woman just as much as I'm against a group of Hispanic men beating up an innocent white person, or the KKK going after an innocent black person, or vice versa. I've seen Black Lives Matter, full of their vitriol and hate, just beat up people. In some cases, folks that aren't even Trump supporters, in their hatred, in their built-up victimology of life, that they've got something to prove, and they have a right to be angry and have a chip on their shoulder. And it's all being manipulated by the social engineers.
Know your rights, know your law. And I promise you, if they go about their burden of whatever they said you're doing, you pull your piss out, you bust at it. You pull your piss out, you bust at it. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be you against them. And when we move with the Panthers, trust me, when you see me move, I'm moving in violence.
Now stop clapping. Stop clapping. Stop clapping, because most of y'all folks ain't involved. Real talk.
We're tired of walking around here asking y'all to help us.
No more asking.
We need action. Take action. I don't give a whether you knock them over, whether you run up on them, whatever you do. You better take action.
And now, ahead of Cleveland next week, we have seen riots all over the country, police shot all over the nation. Every few hours it's happening at courthouses and highways from Michigan to Georgia, from Tennessee to Texas. And we see the White House and the Justice Department, Loretta Lynch, come out and say, you better listen to Black Lives Matter. We've seen Hillary say, better listen up.
I'm going to be talking to white people. I think we're the ones who have to start listening to the legitimate cries that are coming from our African-American fellow citizens.
This is a woman that overthrows countries and puts ISIS in charge to murder hundreds of thousands of Christians. This is a woman that gets $100 million from Saudi Arabia and more from Gulf states, where they totally enslave women. These are the biggest damn hypocrites the world's ever seen. You got a bunch of trendies that don't care about what's right. They want to just say they're liberal and feel good about themselves and see a great agenda of evil foisted on the planet. I'm going to Cleveland because of these bullies. I've said for months I'm going, and I'm going. And I'm going to be there with rallies and live events, standing up for free speech and standing up for what's left of this country. The whole Republican establishment, along with the Democrats, has been trying to block our rallies. We've sued them twice. They failed. They've been trying to keep Trump from getting the nomination. They have pulled out the stops with lies and disinformation because they want the prize that is America, that they've already sold out. They've already shipped our jobs to China. They've already set up tariffs and systems that ensure we can't compete. We're run by traitors, and they can't believe we're starting to wake up like folks did in the UK with the Brexit. Ladies and gentlemen, this is history happening right now. We're covering it right here in InfoWars. And it's more important than ever that you realize history is happening. And what develops here in the next few months is going to change the course of history for good or for bad. But I'm not going to sit there and watch a bunch of brainwashed, government-funded, George Soros-supported thugs run around and attack men, women, and children in the hopes of intimidation. A lot of people watch what different socialist groups are doing, what Bernie Sanders groups are doing, what Black Lives Matter are doing. And they say, that's crazy. That discredits them. It's horrible what they're doing. And that's because you're from a perspective of supporting free speech. But for a lot of the young people in this country, and a lot of the people raised by MTV, they think anything's okay as long as you say you're liberal. And they think it's cool to support wars, torture, Islamic mutilization of women, Islamic, just absolute sexual genocide. They support all of it because it isn't about actually empowering humanity. It's about them claiming they have the moral high ground in dominating and controlling language and culture and everything else. It's time to get aggressive. It's time to get in these people's faces. It's time to not associate with people you've put up with over the years who claim they're liberal, but then tell you you're bad because you're pro-Second Amendment. I'm so sick of all these Hollywood people that make all these movies where they're badasses with guns and shoot all these folks. They've got bodyguards in real life, but they don't want us to own guns. I'm going to start more and more calling out all the so-called Hollywood badasses that are nothing but establishment whores that want to disarm the people. Now I'm going to start calling out other frauds as well, and it's time for you to do it because they're part of a globalist takeover, and they sense they're with the power structure, and they think by going along with it, they somehow have power. They don't realize they're useful idiots who will be thrown to the side. History shows that. Look, if you want to deny this country's being strangled, if you want to deny that the globalists are breaking this country's will and turning us against each other, that's fine. Let your chains set lightly upon you, as Patrick Henry said. But as for me, I want to know the whole truth and make preparations for it. And as for me, give me liberty or give me death, because being a slave is worse than death. Now back to the live transmission. David Knight, Anthony Gucciardi, and the rest of the crew in Austin, Texas. Lord willing, I'll be back to live tomorrow in studio for what we call the Info War.
And that was Alex Jones, and I'm David Knight here in studio with Anthony Gucciardi. I want to get Anthony's take on what's happening now with as we're brought to the brink of a race war, as well as calls for further federal control and militarization of the police. You know, Anthony, I was looking at the comments from the girlfriend of the guy who was shot, Philando Castile. She filmed him as he was dying. You know, we can argue all these statistics about who is more victimized by this, or white people or black people. You know, in terms of absolute numbers, there's more white people killed, but in terms of percentage, it's a much higher percentage of black people who are killed, so forth and so on. Washington Post took Mike Huckabee to task on that. He came back to them and he says, well, I guess you could say male lives matter because 94% of the people who are killed are males. So we could try to divide it down by that. But to me, it's a much more fundamental problem. Because one of the things that she said was, she said, if we can't turn to our higher power, you know, officers and things of that sort, then who are we going to turn to if the people that are supposed to be protecting us are the ones that are assassinating us? And when I look at that, it's like, if you're going to just passively turn yourself over to a government and think that it's going to protect you, you have to understand that if you lean on the government and use it as a crutch, you're going to find out that it's a stick that's going to break and pierce your hand. And I think that's what people are finding out, but they haven't come to that conclusion. They're still blaming it on race.
You know, I think if we were a doctor, if we were both doctors looking at the United States, looking at America, and we were to make a diagnosis, this is all just a symptom, right? A good doctor, if you came in with, let's say, you know, boils on your hands or hives on your face or something, he wouldn't just say, oh, well, that's hives. He would say, what's causing the hives? What did you do? What did you eat? You know, something's going on. There's an internal root issue. This is just balled up anger and hatred and frustration. And I've got a ton of articles printed out today about some of these statistics. People are pissed off. They're so angry. They're just full of rage and hatred because the government has completely shut them out. The establishment has completely screwed them. They bought into the lie. Everybody, not just Black Lives Matter, everybody. Everyone has, at one point or another, society as a whole has bought into this lie. It's bought into this system. Psychology Today has a great article about, is society manufacturing depressed and angry people? I mean, all of this is just a symptom of the fact that our society has been duped. It has been tricked.
As you point out all the time, we talk about health issues. Typically, that's what we see the doctors doing, is addressing the symptoms.
Exactly. So,
you know, treating the outbreak rather than getting to the root cause of it.
Well, as above, so below. Sometimes in a micro level, we can see things that apply to a meta level, right? So it stuck out to me today, specifically these two articles side by side. You have to have some humor sometimes, but think about this. So one says, what economic recovery? 62% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in savings. Okay, so think about the average person. 62% don't even have $1,000 in savings. But then that's next to this headline from CNN Money. Stocks have never been higher. It says the Dow is higher than it's ever been before, and it's like a celebratory thing.
It took long to recover from Brexit, did it?
Yes.
It's like 1 week and it's back.
But the juxtaposition here is absurd. The Dow gained over 120 points and hit 18,353 on Tuesday, surpassing the previous record set in May 2015. And the economists are saying this is the economy's recovering, it's rebounding. This is so powerful. We're having this economic rebound. Meanwhile, 62% of Americans don't have $1,000 in savings. So you can see now the disconnect just at this micro level, right? Where there's people walking around, 62% that don't have $1,000. That's going to make them upset. Not to mention, you know, we can get into more of this too when we come back from the break, but Americans work more than anyone, more than the English, more than the French, the Germans, Norwegians. They take less vacation, work longer days, make less money. And now China's middle class is surpassing American middle class in savings. I mean, it's insane. There's no way people are not going to hit the boiling point. It's like if you poured gasoline all over a house and there's just people walking by, I mean, for days and days watching the gasoline sit there. Someone's going to throw a match on it, and that's the mainstream media. The lens, the focus is on things like, you know, the police and all of this. This is just a symptom of the root issue. Not that there's not real discrimination and real horrible things going on. There certainly is. But the media focuses that rage into something.
That's right. And they use it to exacerbate the condition. And as Gerald Celente has always said, when people lose everything, they lose it. And that's what we're about to see here. We're going to be right back. I'm David Knight with Anthony Gucciardi. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight here with Anthony Gucciardi in the studio. We're just talking about the two different Americas, I guess you could say. It's a meme that people have talked about. The essence that the investor class has basically played things like the Brexit to make a great deal of money, haven't they, Anthony? You know, they thrive off of markets that go radically up and radically down. And if they can come up with a rationale to make that happen, that's when they make their money. They don't make any money when everything goes sideways. And they're making a lot of money off of this. Meanwhile, as you point out in the last segment, most Americans have, less than $1,000, though, to tide them over. So most people are not really prepared for the kinds of challenges that we're likely to face. We're seeing things getting very volatile. We've had people talking about a summer of chaos coming up. It's about to begin this next week. We've had Black Lives Matter, another group saying they're going to shut down these two political conventions. We're going to be there. You can help to fuel our reports with the InfoWar, as well as to provide for your health with these specials that we've extended. We've got 20% still off of Survival Shield X2, that's going to end tonight. That's nascent iodine. Also ending tonight is 20 to 40% off InfoWars Select Storable Food. That's a very key way to provide for yourself and your family in these times of uncertainty. Make sure that you're going to be protected not only against disruptions in the food supply, but also against massive price increases that could also come through. We've had reports